Welcome to this introductory e-module on utilizing the Achieve Performance Management System within HR Connect. The Achieve process with which you are familiar has not changed, but we've migrated the management of the process to HR Connect. The new module makes it easier than ever for managers and employees to collaborate with one another to achieve success. You can access the new Achieve module by clicking on the Performance Management tab, as indicated here. This will take us to the page displayed here. This tab, labeled To Do, displays all of our action or pending items. We see a list of those employees who require some level of action regarding their Achieve plans, alongside the status of those Achieve cycles. We've logged into the system as a manager, but it's important to note that the employee screens look virtually identical. Their systems are limited by the fact that they can only edit their own data as opposed to your entire team's, but otherwise an employee's view is very similar to that of a manager. Let's take a look at the steps involved in opening, monitoring and developing, and ultimately closing an employee's performance management cycle. We'll select the employee named Sam York for the purposes of this system demonstration. We can see that the steps involved in completing the process are simply illustrated down the left-hand side. To begin, we can review an introduction to the process and guidelines for its completion. Helpful links will also point us towards the Achieve Resources page located on eServices, where, if need be, we can learn more about the Achieve process. We can then explore Empire's vision, mission, and corporate priorities in order to put us in the right frame of mind to align an employee's objectives with our overall strategic goals and ensure that individual objectives, which we'll see in a moment, have a clear line of sight to the broad objectives of the organization as a whole. This takes us to the business unit priorities, which are established and communicated each year by the leadership team in every business area and approved by their respective senior vice president. These priorities will be established for you, so you do not need to worry about inputting them yourself. This brings us to the heart of the performance management matter, individual performance objectives. Remember that these objectives should be SMART in nature. That is, they should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For more help with setting SMART objectives, explore the provided link or visit the Achieve Resources page located on eServices. We can see that 3 objectives have already been established. Let's add an additional objective by clicking on the Add button at the top of the window. This opens a new objective setting window which allows us to enter an individual objective for the employee. The next step is to further define the objective by adding additional details and criteria. We then ensure that the individual objective is linked to one of our business unit priorities. We can choose these priorities from the drop-down list provided. Finally, this objective is ultimately aligned with one of our overarching corporate directives, in this case, operational effectiveness. Note that both managers and employees have the ability to enter individual objectives, enhancing the collaborative nature of the exercise. In fact, once these objectives have been set, both the employee and manager can enter the system throughout the year and leave non-mandatory comments related to progress against each objective. This is another way that performance management is being rendered more collaborative. It is also important to note, however, that while data entered by an employee may be edited by the manager, objectives entered by the manager cannot be modified by the employee. Also, for managers who have multiple employees with very similar objectives, the ability exists to cascade these objectives to the employees in question and avoid the necessity of multiple entry. We would then move on to the core competency section of Achieve. As we see here, Empire has selected 3 competencies on which to focus, and they are dependent on our role within the company. If they so choose, managers can select up to 1 additional competency for the employee to develop and proceed to define how the employee may develop each competency. We would do so by clicking on the Add from Library button located in the top right menu bar. We would then choose our selected competency from the displayed competency library. These competencies can also be found in the competency dictionary, and the proficiency levels indicated have been mapped to all core positions. This takes us to a description of the competency in question and gives us the ability to enter a development plan associated with the chosen competency. To aid us in crafting a suitable development plan, we can use the Writing Assistant tool by clicking on the yellow icon immediately to the right of the development plan entry box. The Writing Assistant allows you to choose the verbiage associated with the proficiency level in question and transfer it directly to the development plan area we just saw. This allows us to craft a competency development plan which aligns itself to the proficiency level descriptions while lessening the burden otherwise associated with manually copying verbiage from the competency dictionary. Likewise, the next step in the process, the professional development plan, gives you the ability to craft some career development objectives, items such as industry education, volunteer or informal leadership opportunities, and certain project work, would all be candidates for inclusion in a development plan. In the now familiar process, you would simply click on the Add button to get started. This opens an objective setting window very similar to the one we used for core competencies. We have the opportunity to first enter the objective itself, followed by a more detailed description of the same objective. The mid-year summary is an easy-to-utilize three-step process involving both the manager and employee. The first step begins with an employee's self-assessment against their objectives, followed by the manager's summary of the employee's performance. The final step allows the employee to respond to their manager's feedback with their own comments. In addition, the mid-year ratings are subjected to a calibration exercise amongst the leaders of the business area in question. Each step of the mid-year process is exclusive to the active commenter in question. In other words, if the employee is in the process of composing their self-assessment comments, their manager cannot unilaterally complete the summary. Likewise, the employee cannot enter their final comments until their manager has entered their summary comments. Progress against each stage in the process will be signaled via email indicators. The year-end summary follows the same steps as the mid-year review, except that it takes in the entire performance cycle, and final ratings are subject to both additional review by senior leaders and to a similar calibration exercise as mentioned for the mid-year summary. Additionally, year-end ratings will be fed into the Merit tool as they are finalized. The Summary tab gives you a quick overview of all of the key individuals and entities involved in the performance management process at hand, such as additional reviewers required. And finally, the Attachments and Reports tab gives you the ability to attach documents such as sales blueprints, print hard copy summaries of the performance management document, and view past achieved plans and ratings. Additional reports are currently being built into the system, but senior leaders requiring additional reports can always contact their TMC to expedite retrieval of the required information. Thank you for taking the time to view this introductory video on the System-Enabled Achieve process. Should you have any questions or inquiries, do not hesitate to contact your talent management consultant.